Well, good evening, folks. Garrett with Old Breed Outdoors here again with another episode on our Field to Table series. As promised, we're going to start doing a little bit more than just processing on this series and start actually working on some recipe stuff. So, full disclosure, I'm using recipes. These aren't recipes that I have created. I'm just maybe doing a little variation of the recipe that I have found. I'm not exactly the type of cook that can just whip some stuff together. Certain things, easy stuff maybe. I'm really good at breakfast burritos. But at any rate, taking recipes that we have found and adapting them to work for us with what we have and our abilities and all those things. But this is realistic cooking, right? And we want to be able to share things with you that we actually are cooking for our families. Some of these things are going to be quick, some of these things are going to be lengthy. So as far as the time to prepare and cook it and then serve it. So at any rate, we want this to be something just not fancy stuff that is out of the reach for most people, because that kind of stuff is pretty much out of reach for us. We don't have the time or the skill set to do that kind of stuff. Maybe one day. But right now, this is just realistic cooking in the kitchen. So for today, I've got venison and noodles, and I'm going to give this a shot and see how it goes. But this is a recipe that I've been wanting to try for some time. Just haven't gotten around to it. So broke out the good old Dutch oven. This is going to take about 2 to 3 hours to start to finish. So that's why I'm getting started now, so we can have it in time for dinner. So with that, let's get started. So we start with our Dutch oven here, and I've got a plate of one cube venison. So you can use a roast, you can use neck meat, just whatever you want. And this recipe is half of the recipe. So what I'm doing, you could do yourself for the full recipe, which is for 2 pounds. But for what I need, that's way more. That's way too much. So I halved everything, and I only had some cube. I didn't have I had a roast, but I'm saving it. I'm going to try this cube. For me, this is kind of where I was going with it anyways. So I'm going to give this a shot. So I've got a pound of cube here on the plate. I need it calls for white pepper. So this is 1/8 of a teaspoon of white pepper. Like I said, everything I'm doing is half of what the recipe calls for, just so you know. So I'm going to sprinkle this on here. Like I said, white pepper, and just sprinkle it on. And then some kosher salt. I don't have kosher salt, so I'm using sea salt. I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you, because I've used sea salt for a lot of things that call for kosher salt, and you know what? It tastes just fine. So not too much salt. So there's that. Next step is I need to get this heated, my Dutch oven heated up and onto the stove. So if you were using a roast, this is where you would sear your roast with your white pepper and your salt. So I'm going to go real easy on this one, but because it's already cubed, I'm going to throw some oil in here, and I'm just going to kind of roll it around a little bit, get a good sear on it once it's good and hot here, and then I'll be ready to move on to the next step. But for you all, if you're going to use a roast, make sure you actually sear that roast on all sides like you would a normal sear on anything like a steak, a backstrap roast, whatever. For this, like I said, I'm doing it just a little bit different. All right, so we're good and hot now, so I'm going to get this in. Now this won't take very long because it's a cube. So I'm just going to let it sit, get that sear on it, stir it around. The key is make sure this is good and hot, just like any other kind of sear. Okay, that should be good. And now I've got, I didn't sear it quite all perfect yet because I'm going to move on with the rest of the stuff. So, because it is the cube, I don't want to overcook it and burn it. So the next step is going to be my onions. So I've got one onion, like medium-sized onion, and I've kind of roughly sliced it. So what I did is I just peeled it, sliced it down the middle, cut the ends off, sliced it down the middle, and then sliced it, the other cross grain. So that should be fine. I'm going to throw that in here, and what you want to do So I got it way down on the heat. Stir that in there. And basically just going to simmer this until those onions are translucent. That should take about maybe 5-6 minutes. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So next we've got two cloves of garlic smashed. So that's as simple as put it on the cutting board, flat-sided knife, smash it. We're going to stick that in there. And then 2 sprigs of fresh thyme, about as fresh as it's going to get. Put that in there. We're going to stir this in here for about a minute. Okay, so while I've been doing this, I've got the oven preheating to 300 degrees. Because once we're done here on the stove, we're going to transfer the Dutch oven over to the oven at 300 degrees for 2 to 3 hours. So the next step is adding the water to this. So 4 cups of water. Pour that in. And then we're going to bring that to a simmer. And once we get a good simmer on it, we'll put the lid on and then we'll transfer it over to the oven. Alright, so we got it to a simmer. Now we'll put it in the oven. I'll put that right there in the center of the rack. Close that up. And then because I'm using that Q meat, I'm going to only cook it for about 2 hours instead of like the full 3 hours that it talks about. It says 2 to 3 hours, so I'm just going to go with the 2 hours. That way I don't overdo that meat too much. But we'll let that sit there for a couple hours and we'll see you when we get back. Oh, got it out of the oven. Been a couple hours. So we're going to take the lid off here and see what it looks like. Ooh, it smells good. Looks pretty good. Give that a little stir. Oh yeah, that's looking pretty good. So like I said, it looks pretty good. I've just strained all the meat and the onions and everything out. So I'm going to pick out all the meat here, and I mean, there'll still be some pieces of onion and whatnot in here, which is fine, but the point is to get most of it out. So I strained it, poured water, the broth and everything's still in here. I'm going to get the meat in here and then we'll get busy on the next piece. Alright, well I got that all picked out of there. It was pretty nice. Sitting there for the last 2 hours, just basically braising in that liquid. That meat is like super tender. It's kind of almost shredding with the tongs I was using to pick it out, put it back in. So now I'm going to bring this to a boil, and I've got my Worcestershire sauce. Say that 5 times fast. And beef bouillon. Get that in there. And we'll mix that in. Get a good boil there. And then we're going to add our noodles. Okay, for the noodles, it's these, I guess you say Remy's home-style egg noodles. You find these in the frozen section. There's frozen egg noodles. So, put these in here. So you essentially have a soup right now. You mix these in here, and you're going to let this simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes. And these noodles will absorb it all, and ideally will get us a nice thick sauce over the next 30 minutes as this cooks down. So let's see what happens. Keep our fingers crossed this works out. Alright, time for the test. Grab us a little bit here. Look at that. That looks delicious, doesn't it? That's good. That's exactly what I had in my head that would be. That is that is unbelievably good. So with that, I'm going to get dinner served up here for the family. soon as they walk in the door. And we appreciate you guys following along. This was the first go at this cooking type thing, not just processing thing. And well, it turned out all right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys be out there and start trying your own stuff. As always, reach down, hit that subscribe button. We sincerely appreciate all of your support, and keep following along. Give us a like, leave a comment, and be sure to come back and visit us again. Thanks so much. See you.